Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pomerium live stream. I'm your host, Nick Taylor. I'm a developer advocate over at Pomerium, and these streams are just hanging out with people in the community. And today, hanging out with a friend of mine, B. Dougie, aka, well, not aka, Brian Douglas, aka B. Dougie, but Brian's head of ecosystem over at CNCF. Hey, B. Dougie, how you doing today?
I am doing well. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you, Nick. And yeah, big fan of what you do, and a big fan of yeah. Actually, I got to catch up with you in London at the Pomerium booth.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah.
actually said that word aloud a ton, but yeah, hung out with at the booth, had a bit of a chat with you and the team, and happy to be here again.
Yeah, it was great catching up, and yeah. We're gonna. I see John in the chat says, "I hear Brian knows about pizza."
I should have worn my
That could
pizza
be
hat.
true.
I
Yeah,
was close to grabbing that out of the drawer, but went with the coffee
yeah.
hat today.
I'll go on a pizza tangent for a second here, but we hung out in San Francisco last year after Netlify Compose, and uh, we grabbed some drinks and some pizza, and
Well, not
I
just any
forget
pizza. We had Tony's, which, if
Tony's. Yeah,
anybody's been in
sorry,
San
yeah,
Francisco, it's the pizza in North Beach. So it's
yeah.
the standard.
So, and really great pizza, but it was actually the first time I had what do you call the pizza that looks like lasagna? Is that the
Oh,
Chicago stuff?
Detroit style.
Detroit style. It was really good, but I was kind of comatose after that. But very good pizza, and yeah, Tony's was amazing. But anyways, enough about pizza for the moment. But I guess kind of what have you been up to? Like we're talking about self-hosting, like your own agent here today, and probably go on some tangents and stuff. But I don't know if you kind of want to lead in with that. Like I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
what have
I
you been
could
up to
say
with that?
yeah, so, like, that I definitely I work at CNCF, not here to represent, like, Kubernetes and all the cool stuff in open source that they're doing. Definitely check it out, and I know some folks, already in the chat, I've also saw at KubeCon that are here. But I've been actually playing around with a lot of AI coding assistants, to be quite honest. Like, I've found
Okay.
myself where I'm no longer, like, day to day, like, actually, even at open source when I was running that, like, wasn't really
Yeah.
driving code, more of like product and decisions,
Yeah.
and got really interested towards the tail end of that to really check out what's going on in the AI world. So um,
Hmm.
in January, had some free time to sort of poke around and try some ideas, and then Bolt.new also came out around that time. Or sorry, it came out a
Yeah.
couple months before, but I didn't actually build anything until January.
Okay.
And it's really excited about like how fast this world's moved, and also the agentic like experience.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
actually, from that exploration, I started trying a bunch of different tools, and I stumbled on this tool called continue.dev. And continues,
Okay.
it specifically started a year ago because of a Hacker News post, or it might have been,
Okay.
yeah, about a year ago. And the idea is like if you know GitHub Copilot, or if you know Cursor and Windsurf, I imagine that's still around.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm not sure whatever it's going to turn into, but I guess the product's still around.
Okay.
Like having an AI coding assistant, like an editor with you alongside for the ride, uh, it's now become the standard. I'm not sure. Do you use any of those by chance?
Yeah, I'm like I haven't used Continue yet, so I'm curious to hear about it. But I'm I have a subscription to Cursor, and I've been using Windsurf as well. And because I've been giving a bunch of talks on Copilot extensions, I still use VS Code as well. And I kind of cycle through them because I think people are playing like I think objectively VS Code is catching up with they have the agentic mode now, agent mode, which
Yeah.
is a lot really way better now.
Yeah, and
And but
I think if I get this right, Cursor might have had like the first earliest version of that worked.
yeah.
Someone can keep me honest here and like, rage comment about like, no, this one was first.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cursor had like that the sort of agentic experience in their
Yeah.
models, and then we saw some other people fast follow and do something similar. So kind of how you have like Instagram stories, like that was like a Snapchat
Yeah.
feature first. I think that's now become the sort of standard. Like we should be able to
Yeah.
ask this thing to fix our bugs.
Yeah, totally. And it's just interesting to see where it goes because like I ended up buying a Bolt.new subscription as well. And it actually, like, little side note, but like because I started at Pomerium back in January, and like I think after my first week, I was like, I put out just a quick like YouTube short about like what is zero trust, which is the security we're based off of, and I was like, I need some kind of video, and I actually, I have a lot of web dev skills, so I went into Bolt, and I said, can you like I explained what I was looking for. I was basically trying to convey how it works, but just kind of through the process of somebody going through airport security, and I think it was, I think it ended up using 3.3JS, and I ended up getting this really nice animation that was just a web page, and I basically played the web page in my video short, and it looked really good, and like I literally spent an hour on that, and I don't know, I feel like there's so many use cases. Like obviously it's a web dev stuff, but I leveraged it in that case, and I was pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get into the vibe coding scene then at this point?
Yeah, no, yeah, there's still an error. Please try again.
Yeah. It's the I do know Simon Wilson. He's works on this product called Dataset. He also worked on Django as well, like the Python framework. And he
Yeah,
wrote this article on around vibe coding. Wait, actually, I'll have to look up the title because I'll get this wrong.
yeah,
It actually just came up in my browser because I just finished reading it last week. I had it in my tabs. Not all AI coding assistants assisted programming is vibe coding, but vibe coding
yeah,
rocks. It's actually actually I'll drop this in the private chat since and
yeah,
folks are following along. Um,
yeah. I'll go
and
ahead and copy that in.
and I'll go ahead and share my screen too as well because I'll show the article, but I'll show continue as well.
Yeah, go for it.
So like I like the space that we're sort of operating in, and I get that folks have there's like there are limitations to this world of vibe coding, and like it needs a little bit of
Yeah,
help support. But what I've learned is like being able to have some guardrails specifically. So let me just jump into continue because like we're gonna get into this eventually.
yeah,
Continue
go
is
for it.
like it's a coding assistant, and I think what it really came out last year is self-hosting is like the focal point of this. So a lot of folks might be familiar with Olama. Olama has been a really good tool for running local models on your machine. So
Mhm.
things like
Yeah,
Llama or Quinn Coder. There's a few, Mixtral is another one. You can run these models locally on your machine, like your Mac or your laptop or whatnot, and
yeah.
you get the power of being able to like have AI like provide chat edits locally. And my experience going to London is like I was able to write some code and like chat with the AI
Okay.
in that context on the plane. So like the plane, yeah, you get Wi-Fi, but like you're not going to want to download an entire model or do a bunch of like heavy lifting through
Yeah.
the internet. Um, but you get the entire access of the model locally, and it kind of really like expanded my palette of like what I wanted to do with this thing. Because at the end of the day, it's
Okay.
like there's a well, I can actually show some demos and we can talk through this as well. But
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I was really interested about specifically continue, which I guess I'll need to log in. Please don't take my client ID secret.
I didn't see it. I didn't share your screen yet. Oh yeah, you aren't sharing your screen yet, actually. Are you?
Oh, am I not? I
Oh no, you are.
gotta.
Sorry, I haven't switched to that screen yet. So let me know once your client secret's gone.
Okay, yeah, you can switch. So I pulled
Okay,
up
cool.
basically my Continue Hub, and like Continue Hub is essentially. Am I saying the? I just see your face. Oh, there we
There
go.
we go.
There we go.
Sorry,
So like,
I'm used to using OBS. This is Restream in the browser. So all right, cool.
actually, yeah, I haven't used Restream since like early Restream days, so it's kind of cool to see how far this thing's come along since like I think it came out. Well, it might have been around before the pandemic, but I
Okay.
digress. Cool. So continue basically its ability to build coding assistants like that you can use for specific use cases. So right off the bat, you can see like a Next.js coding assistant,
Okay.
and this obviously is going to have very specifically trained details like with documentations and with RAG search, as well as like choosing models for Next.js. And this will help
Okay. Yeah.
you. So like if you wanted to like mess with the router or do server side components and stuff like that, like all the sort of Next.js stuff that you need to be doing in your projects that exists. A couple of
Okay.
like examples, which I've got my Gemma 3 for the win is actually they promoted this to be a featured example.
Okay.
And this is an example that John, who's in the chat, I was actually writing some Go code based on some stuff that John wrote. And
Okay.
I was using this specific assistant to help me write some Go code. So the way it works in continues, you have these different blocks that you can choose. And I'll get to the local to self-hosting part eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, well, technically, this is self-hosted. This actually runs local on my machine. But what's cool about this is I can go configure it in the UI, which I'm
Okay.
doing here, or which I've done here. And I've got specifically 3 models. I've got like just Gemma 3, but I got
Mhm.
different sizes of Gemma 3. And this is important because I've got a MacBook Pro. It's not the Max. So
Okay,
when I'm
yeah.
in a situation where I've got a Zoom call going and I'm doing a couple other things, I'll probably grab the smaller 1B model. So it
Okay,
can do
yeah.
like some quick edits, some smart lookups. But what's beneficial about this is you have every part of your assistant is a block. So if you're familiar with things like Copilot instructions or cursor rules, you can
Okay.
create rules based on that assistant. So what I did is I went to the Go Effective Programming Guide
Okay.
and or Effective Go, and I basically took this entire documentation, this URL, and I
Yeah.
generated using I used Perplexity as my my chat AI thing, and I was
Okay,
like,
yeah.
hey, generate cursor rules specifically for Effective Go. So what we were
Okay,
just
yeah.
looking at is that like how to structure your Go code in a way that's uh, I guess you can't really, I guess it doesn't go full screen, but
Okay.
you could use your imagine that these are all basically rules to write effective Go programming. And this
Yeah.
is a thing that I was always a bit gun shy on because I haven't written Go full time in like probably 8 years. And I've only
Okay.
tinkered with Go since then. But then I've got some other rules around like fixing like how to structure my project because I was building packages.
Okay,
So
yeah.
there was just things I was learning specifically that I need to unbreak. And I actually took this specifically from this article, which apologies on all the URLs, but
Oh, that's all good.
there was an
I
article I
can share them
wrote
after.
about you're using cursor incorrectly
Okay.
from Jeff Huntley. And Jeff in particular, he worked at GitHub for a while. I'm not sure what he does now. He does like consulting. But
Okay.
if you like skim this article or you summarize it in ChatGPT, the idea is like every time you get a weird like debugging loop where you can't get unstuck or it writes
Yeah.
like I get a lot of when I'm using coding assistants, it will write Next.js code when I'm really just writing Vite and React.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you get those weird errors, the best thing you could do is go back to your assistant and add a rule that says, hey, we don't use Next.js, we use this. Or hey, we're
Yeah.
using V7 of React Router. Or we write our Go code this way. So those are rules. Docs are just as what do you think they are? They're this RAG searches on URLs that can
Okay.
take data and like make your assistant more powerful by just knowing the context of the structure, whatever API or library you're using.
Okay.
And then prompts are these are if you're familiar with sets of prompts, like when it comes to LLMs, this is a prompt that you can set yourself, which I said like you're a Go programming assistant, you're tasked to help developers write clean, idiomatic code, effective, blah blah blah. So this is help to reinforce the learning, and there's some like context and stuff like that that exists as well, which is like having context of your file tree or your terminal. Um,
Okay.
and then MCP is also, I think you probably talked to people about MCP already, and like people can they already know what this is. If not, definitely go read
Yeah.
the last article that was published because stuff's changing so quick. Um, but what I'm getting at is there's two worlds where you can just go use a Copilot, works out of the box, pick Claude or GPT 4.1, it
Mhm.
works. But in like certain situations, specifically in like private code or enterprise teams, and like we have specific structure and rules on how you write code at this company, it
Yeah.
leans better into that situation where you can actually set up an assistant for your entire team to use that you can pass around. So when onboarding comes
Okay.
along, or imagine you like have an open source project like a Vite or a Vue, and you want to onboard a contributor, but you want to make sure that contributor is not spending way more time like doing stuff
Mhm.
that's not important. Which is why we have linting. This is why we have test. And this is why we have coding assistants now. So that's the high level of continue. I'll take a pause because that
Okay.
was like that was a lot.
No, it's a good explainer. I guess one question I have is like, because you were pointing out like similar like cursor rules and stuff. I like the idea because I've heard Swix talking about this, like, from small AI. It's always like you want to have agents that are good at one thing. But I'm curious, how does this differ to, say, like I open up VS Code or Cursor and I'm in my Go project that I'm working on with you, and I just add those custom rules and I'm just curious, how does continue differ than the out of the box, whether it's Cursor, Windsurf, or VS Code in agent mode with like rules in those projects?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that continues, which maybe keep me honest on this, but like continues open source through and through.
Yeah.
So what you'll find is a lot of people are building their own distribution of continue for their own
Okay.
enterprise or their own companies. And what's nice about this, and I guess I should start this since I'm here. Um,
Yeah.
but what's nice about this is like, and this is actually a challenge we had at Open Source, which we built a cool product that people could leverage for free. But when it
Yeah.
came time to talk to enterprises, like we needed to build a sort of behind the firewall, containerized air gap solution. And what
Yeah.
this offers is someone to give an air gap solution. So like a lot of the earlier, and I didn't mention this, but I worked at GitHub for like almost 5 years. I was part of the team to help do the sort of storytelling around Copilot. So I didn't actually build the product.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of those early stories, like people are concerned about like where's this data being trained, who owns this data, and I think with like
Yeah.
Copilot Enterprise, like that answers some questions around that of like who owns the data, like what is being reshared, and it gives you an incentive to like pay for Copilot.
Yeah.
With Continue, it gives you an incentive to leverage the open source angle and help build out the ecosystem,
Okay.
and like being able to participate and make contributions. So I can say
Okay.
with Cursor is Cursor open source? Like someone
I
keep me
I
honest.
I don't think it is. Like, obviously it's a fork of VS Code like Windsurf, but
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not
this
sure.
is it is open source. Yeah, so there we
Okay.
go. It is open source, and I think that's not really a differentiated factor there.
Yeah.
But again, I don't work at Continue, so like everyone else figure out like what's better about
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and
Oh
you
yeah.
write a blog post on it.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. Yeah, no, I was just generally curious, but I think the point what you're saying about like air gapping and stuff, that is pretty important because like uh we're not talking about Premium here today, but like Premium is similar. It's open core, and like when we were at KubeCon EU, like something that was very important to at least the European crowd was it's open source and you self-host it. Those were
Yeah.
like really important things to them. So like to your point, what you were saying before about like air gapping it, it's only on your network. The data doesn't flow out. So I think those are definitely pluses to continue here that you're mentioning. Um,
Oh,
but
so we did get a confirmation. Cursor is not open source, so I don't know what I just
yeah,
pulled up,
it
but
looked like it's just a README, I think.
yeah, it
Uh,
is.
okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, you know what?
So,
That's a classic. Open source for the win. Like there's nothing
oh,
here. Like there's a
there's also a user on LinkedIn that says they work at Continue.
yeah. So
Uh,
appreciate you hanging out in the chat.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, is that the real Michael
Keep
though?
us honest. I'm not. It's Ty Dunn. Sorry, I just saw the
Oh
LinkedIn.
yeah, Ty is one of the co-founders of Continue. So thanks for joining, Ty, and feel free to drop some some answers to questions, and also point me into anything that you think is cool to show off.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I'm cool. Cool to check this out. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I derailed your demo there with that
You know,
question.
that was the context, and I did pause because I ran through a bunch of stuff really quickly because I want to actually show
Okay.
Continue in action as well. But I
Okay.
wanted to give like the context of what we're kind of
Yeah.
talking about, and also talk about what I've built recently. So you put this in the description for this this chat, and
Yeah.
like the way it's got it set up, I'll probably just go to the VS Code, but what I do,
Okay.
I will show this thing that I built, and then I'll just show the code and explain like what I've been working on. So if you're familiar with open source was like a really cool way to like get developer insights based on repositories, and you can build like workspaces. Currently, that doesn't exist somewhere else. The hope is that my current employer, the LFX, will eventually well, pretty soon actually, they're gonna be shipping a
Yeah.
new version of the Insights tool.
Okay, cool.
So like if anybody's interested in LFX Insights, definitely take a look. Especially if you're in the CNCF world, if you make contributions to large projects, if you work at a large enterprise or you're looking for places to contribute to, definitely check that out. There's a couple other products, but I'll just say that like this is probably the closest comparison, and at least for the sake of my employer, should probably mention that as well, that it exists.
Good
Um,
call, good
but
call.
but I spent a couple weekends ago where I was kind of learning all these tools, and I wanted to like get more understanding of specifically Continue at the time. So
Mhm.
I built a quick little tool that this hits the GitHub API. There's no database, like it gets rendered right now. So
Okay.
and I only have login for the sake of token usage because I can't hit the GitHub API. I can't hammer it and
Okay,
get
yeah,
like
yeah.
all the React PRs without like locking up or getting rate limited. So I don't want to have a poor experience, but if you probably remember this from your time at open source, like the lottery factor.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
the
So like this
it
is
looks
like
pretty
a
similar.
yeah. So this is like the poor man's version. Like I just like and this is currently this product is open source. So feel free to like jump in the code and like steal and rip to shreds or contribute if you'd like. Sorry, not you particularly, but anybody listening. Um,
I was actually planning on I realized it was open source, because I remember you started working on this briefly, exploring this, like, when we were at open source too, I think. It was, like, early days of this, I think.
Yeah, there's like an older version of this that was like I built like a chart and a graph a couple years ago, and
Okay.
it was really I built so we actually got contributor.info the URL because the challenge I had was that OpenSauce.pizza might have been not be an enterprise ready name.
Yeah.
So I bought this URL and I just never did anything with it. It was like as we were fundraising, it was like backup in case I had to like use a real name or I was trying to get a .com, which I have a couple of .coms that are very similar, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'll keep those in the back pocket for now. Um, but I always wanted a way for us to like specifically just pull up data very quickly. It didn't make sense to like pursue this as open source, so I just let it sit and die for a bit. But because
Okay.
I had some free time a couple weeks again, I started rebuilding some of the charts. I wrote a whole blog post on this chart, and just started like using agentic development to basically say, hey, I've got the makings of a component. This is what I'm
Okay.
using. I'm using Nevo charts, and I'd like to rebuild this chart based on the data I'm getting on demand from GitHub. So,
Okay.
what I was kind of shocked at and how quickly I was able to rebuild some cool ideas from open source into
Yeah.
like a throwaway app like this, which is contributor.info. And this is like something that we have, which was like this pull request feed. We actually never shipped anything like this at open source. I always
Yeah.
wanted to, but these will be like all the contributions specifically for XCD, which is a project in the CNCF. Kind of also built this for answering some questions for some of our end users
Okay.
specifically.
Oh,
And it's like,
awesome.
can you get some conversation going about like what's happening in a project at the time?
Mhm.
And mind you, and I'll jump into the actual continue in my VS Code because this continue does run as a VS Code extension. It runs also as a JetBrains extension, and
Okay,
other
cool.
things coming soon. Actually, let me not put a time on the roadmap or anything like that because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what the roadmap is. But what I'm getting at is I yesterday and like, probably about like maybe in 90 minutes, I sort of spun up a new feature to talk to today,
Okay.
which I've always. So you specifically worked on the tool Star Search at Open
Yeah.
Source, and it was like a chat interaction, and it just gave you like insights on demand. And what's been amazing is like stuff that I can like just have in my brain of like it'd be great if I could just summarize what's happening in a project in the last
Oh,
30
yeah,
days.
totally.
So it's just rough pull request insights of like this person, time to merge is like 1.6 hours for this person on average. Slowest merge is whatever's happening with this guy. And this is like
Mhm.
the roughest idea thrown to paper that I was just like, hey, do a thing, create a component, like respect the design system, use the local models, and let's
Okay.
see how far we can get with this. So this is as far as I got. Like I didn't pull any new libraries. I didn't do anything else. The only new
Okay.
thing I did pull in was OpenAI. So like my first feature that uses OpenAI, which I'm on the fence if I'll rip that out and do something local. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, just want to give that context of like this is the thing we're working on
Okay.
because I do want to switch over to my VS Code and kind of show. how
Oh yeah,
continue looks over there.
I'm on the big screen here unintentionally. I'll let you switch your screen there. Um, yeah, it's no, that's cool to see though. Yeah, and it's for context for people who might be like, well, why is it useful the information that BDUG is showing there? It's just like this might not be something for like just your own like project as an individual, but this is something that we focused on when we were at open source. Like and keep me honest with the explanations here, B Dougie, but like everybody, a lot of tools focused on code metrics, and that's not really what we were looking at with at open source. We were really like, what's the health of this project? Like, okay, that's cool, you got 50,000 stars, but that it's a vanity metric. People even pay for stars these days,
Yeah.
and and also like jQuery is a perfect example. Amazing project, but like it's, it became part of the browser essentially, and it's got 100,000 stars or something. But like, how many were like last week or last month? So like we were more focused on like the health of the project. Like, hey, how many people are forking it? Are people contributing and stuff? And that's kind of more the metrics you're trying to surface, right? Still.
Yeah, and this is like, and again, like this is, I want to be very clear. I'm like, I'm not trying to build another open source. I happen
Yeah.
to have a scratch an itch that was like, hey, could I build a thing using AI
Yeah.
coding assistance? And that's what I ended up coming up with. I've got a couple ideas I could also show after I show you how continue works.
Yeah.
But I just sort of just have some ideas, and I guess the thing to kind of step back on is. Um, I come from a space where I was full-time engineering for years. I went to GitHub to be
Yeah.
DevRel. And then I was like constantly building side projects at GitHub to kind of prove out GitHub Actions and
Yeah.
code spaces and work with open source maintainers. So I kind of removed myself from being like engineer and like was way more product like enabler at
Hmm.
that point. So I didn't have a PM title, but I had
Yeah.
an advocate title. And all I could do is like throw a bunch of ideas to the wall and hope for the best. And like sometimes I would build like stars.github.com was a
Hmm.
site that I helped support. Then we handed off to agency because the maintenance of it was just going to be a nightmare for
Yeah.
security and compliance and all this other stuff. But I'm now in a world where ideas can get you much further than you could before. Like
Oh
ideas are
yeah,
cheap;
totally.
they're like a dime a dozen. Like I think there's a ton of tools like Rio.dev. There's obviously LFX Insights. There's
Hmm.
GitRoll. There's all these tools that exist today that also solve this problem of like developer insights. But I think
Yeah.
it's more about the execution. It's more about the storytelling opportunity. And
Yeah.
what I liked about it is that I can just think of an idea and go prototype stuff on a branch, and
Yeah,
then
totally.
like either like commit it or just go ahead and delete that thing and move on. And that goes back to the Simon Wilson article. Like vibe coding is really
Yeah.
cool. And I think where what I didn't get into in that article is it's really good for prototyping and sandboxing yourself into ideation. For
Yeah.
long-standing maintenance, like you're going to need something like a continue where you can actually add more context and
Hmm.
add more basically just make your assistant smarter. I think that's the one thing that I guess you kind of take away from this is like you can add the bells and whistles and the blocks to make your assistant smarter, so it enables you to do certain things. So if you want to share
Yeah.
my VS Code, I'll walk through like how to
Yeah.
use it. And again, if you use a coding
Are you sharing
assistant,
your
a lot
screen?
of this will be familiar.
Okay, I don't think you're sharing your screen still now.
I've got my VS Code. Let me share it
I
again.
only, yeah, I just have you and me. That, okay, yeah, add to the scene. There we go. Cool. All right, there we go.
Excellent. There we are. All right. So I think we got like most of the. I could kind of make this smaller too if you want to try to get
Oh,
the.
that's pretty good.
Okay.
I'll shrink us. There we go.
All right, perfect. Let me give some more angles because I did want to show off the like code extension. So if you wanted to go to continue.dev, I believe is the name, or we'll just go continue. You can tell how much I prepared for this.
There we
There we
go.
go. Yeah. So continue. I've already got it installed, but this FY, it's extension of VS Code. This is how I interact with it for the most
Okay.
part. But definitely check the docs, and there's a Discord if anybody wants to interact with the team and ask questions. But the one thing I wanted to show is that I've got the app that I was showing before, which I'll get my app.tsx, which has got like specific. I've got actually created a test insights route because I was testing. I would need to test some stuff in isolation.
Okay.
And what's cool about the coding assistant world and agentic flow, which I'll just create a new tab, is that I was able to, like, when I did a debug in Sandbox, like, like you do a lot of front end, like the
Yeah.
sort of like text red or color red to like identify something in the UI, like what's broken. What
Yeah,
I
yeah.
find myself all the time doing in React is I'll just ask the agent to just generate me a whole new route that I can test a component in isolation, which I imagine you could use
Okay.
like Storybook for that, or you could do something else. But what I'm finding is like the Excel, it's like an Excel, it's like putting lighter fluid on my
Yeah.
ideation. It's like, I know this is gonna work, but let me like pull in the bells and whistles to like isolate this problem and then get this to work and like console log like the crap to whatever I'm trying to work on without
Yeah.
polluting my main app with a bunch of log statements and a bunch of stuff. And I can sort of figure out like where narrow down different issues. And I was that issue with Superbase with
Okay.
another project, and I wanted to isolate the problem. So I find myself, I'll just create like these like test insight routes and stuff like that to manipulate that. Uh, but the one thing I want to point out is, so this is continue. When you install it, there might be a chance it shows up here. You can just drag it over to the right pane, and
Okay.
then you have this whole like window to interact with. Um, and then you've got like 3 different modes today. So like I can chat with the code base. So like currently I'm on my local assistant. I've also logged in the continue. So the stuff I showed you online, I've got some hosted stuff like Jarvis and Go and Ruby. But then I've
Okay.
got my also local Gemma one here. But I'll just do local assistant because what this does, it looks at your Olama and any installed models that you've used in Olama. So if you're familiar with Olama, you got this far. You can install
Yeah.
models locally on your machine. You could also install models on a different machine and use like Tailscale to pull it in, or you can
Okay.
install it onto a hard drive. I'm actually at a point where I've got no more space on my machine, so I'll probably start using a hard drive for my models in the future. But
Okay.
definitely worth checking out. But like if you're familiar with DeepSeek, like I can use DeepSeek here, and I'll just ask a question of like, what is this test insights? And then I have the option of adding some context. So if I skated
Okay.
over this a bit when I was building my assistant, but adding context as you think would be like the terminal. If I have the terminal open, there's like a response that I want to include in what I'm prompting.
Yeah.
A lot of times I actually just add the entire code base so we can kind of walk through like what's going on there. So hopefully this is pretty quick. It doesn't lock up my machine and I don't stop talking and freeze because I am running this local on my machine currently.
Yeah.
So
I made that mistake. I have Olama on my computer as well, and even with a really good Mac, and
and I see I
not
also
accidentally, but I
spelled is
downloaded the
wrong. So
32 billion
hopefully good.
one, and I just wasn't thinking. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, you hear me?
Anyways.
It
Yeah, yeah.
totally, as I was saying it, it actually happened.
That's all good. That's all good. That's the beauty of live streams instead of like polished YouTube videos. So
Yeah, and you know what I should have did is I probably should have just went ahead and like hosted this on a different machine before I jumped on this call. So I know this for future demos, but let's pretend like I locally hosted this thing and I'm running this on a
yeah.
local model. Um,
Yeah.
and I'll even pick a smaller model. Do I have one? Oh, Quincoder. So this one's hosted, but imagine this is a similar context. And
Yeah.
what's cool about this is I can go back and forth just as fast. So I can go local, I can go hosted. I can manipulate my assistants directly within my VS Code. But I guess
Okay.
what I'm getting at is I've got the power of a coding assistant that's got all the bells and whistles and levers that I would need for my job and for my day to day.
Mhm.
And the benefit that I have right now is that if I wanted to share this assistant, this Jarvis assistant, which I've created, uh, and I've specifically fine tuned this for React development and Vite,
Okay.
um, I can share this with you and invite you to clone it, or rather, what they call is remix this onto your own Continue account. Um,
Oh, okay. That's pretty neat, actually.
Yeah, so like that's the and that'll be like the bigger difference as well between like a cursor or a copilot. It's like copilot, yes, you can sort of edit it on the enterprise level or the business tier where you're actually really the enterprise level where you can kind of manipulate to what you would like, which is like a
Mhm.
great feature. But what's cool about this is I can just like drop you a link directly to this assistant, which I've been playing around with for weeks. Um,
Okay.
which I'll do that right now in case anybody wants to remix it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just drop it in a private chat, and I'll post it in.
Cool. Yeah, but what I've done is I've added a bunch of rules around React development and Vite, and then I've also added a bunch of context to make it aware that we're not doing. Fun enough, I called it test, so maybe I'll rename that. Well, I won't rename it now since everyone's going to need to remix it now. So,
Yeah.
um, but it was my test assistant when I first started using Continue. This is the one I've been playing around with this. So, if anyone wants to,
Okay.
if you're doing React development already, want to try it out, like definitely give it a spin. Um, but like that's it. Like we could build a bunch of features, or I can sort of figure out my build errors specifically. So I've got a couple build errors here.
Okay.
Um, which what's your current, like? Are you still on Stack Overflow? Like, what's your debugging
Y-
workflow now?
Yeah, yeah. So my debugging workflow, I mean, I the only thing I go to Stack Overflow for these days is the question I always have when I want to just restart from the first commit of a project that I started. That's the only time I go to Stack Overflow typically. But my flow these days, right now, like I said, I've been alternating between a few things. It depends. Like I'll use like I have Claude, the paid version, as well as ChatGPT, and I'll ask questions in there. But if I'm in like in the editor, I've been alternating between like Windsurf and Cursor and VS Code. Just I'm always just curious to see how they respond differently. But basically agent mode in most of those. That's what I've been leveraging. And but I'm definitely gonna pull this down. And uh, it is actually pretty interesting that it is open source. Like, I mean, I'm a fan of open source, uh, but in terms of the generally curious because like we obviously ran into this issue at open source, but like in terms of like pricing and making money, it's the general question people are always going to ask when you have like a product that's open source at its heart. I guess that's the cloud hosting of like you have your current ones up there. Is that the
Yeah, so like currently OpenAI, I actually provided my own key.
okay?
Um, but for Claude, I actually am just letting Continue power that for me. So I am
Okay,
paying
yeah, yeah.
Continue like a monthly. I think it, man, keep me honest, $20 I think it might be.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so I paid the $20 because what I found in agent mode is I hit the limit pretty quickly. And as you saw when I just ran the local model,
Yeah.
it's definitely not like if you're to run it locally, you're going to need a beefier machine to also do Zoom calls at the same
Yeah.
time because you're just going to use a bunch of your resources. So what I
Yeah.
want to get to the point is actually, and I appreciate uh, sorry, I'm a Benjamin who's here who works for Akra. Um, I want to actually go deploy the stuff up to the cluster, so actually manage my coding assistants in the cloud. It's a
Okay.
complete side project. Like, doesn't need to be something I have to focus on. But I like the idea of like controlling my own assistants and agents that aren't running on my own machines, but I can pull down and
Okay.
run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the benefit of that is I can just point Olama to specifically whatever URL that it's hosted on.
Hmm.
So like running and SSHing into like my hosted model to then run my continue, like that's a
Yeah.
path that I'll probably end up getting to eventually. That's like as far as this conversation goes, like self-hosting, like that's the point where I would love to have a conversation with the people about that in the future,
Okay.
and more than happy to have future conversations and streams about it. But yeah, definitely don't have it prepared today for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. No. I was just genuinely curious, and I mean, I know you don't work there or anything, but yeah, I
Yeah.
was just it's my generally curious because like I worked at Dev 2. It was open source. You know, how do you make money? We ended up doing cloud hosting. You know. Yeah. So it's yeah, just generally curious, but I do. I do like the idea because, like, obviously, a lot of us pay for cloud-based, like, you know, whether that's like OpenAI API key or like ChatGPT and stuff, and those are all really good. But I do like the idea of like you have your specific thing you've trained, and even if it's in the cloud, it's yours. Like you built it, and you can tweak it as opposed to like the you know, I kind of go back to what Swix always says about like you want an agent to be really good at a specific thing, and that's what you've done with your agents versus like the all-knowing Oracle, which is like a chat GPT or something where it can
Yeah.
definitely answer, but it, you know, it might you might go, here's some more Next.js code, because like I'm just an all-knowing Oracle, so
Yeah, and that's like what you get. Like if you go to ChatGPT and you're like, man, I want to build this thing, and I know I want to do React, like to spin me up like a one file React app. Like you probably
yeah,
get some Next.js because like it's just like SEO. Like everyone sort of floods the model with its own context, and um,
yeah,
we're in interesting times right now because like I used to talk about this concept of like have you ever used Google Maps or Waymo? I guess Waymo is now a
yeah,
self-driving car, but like back in the day it was like just navigation. um you find where like everyone kind of goes down the same path. If everyone's navigating using the same app, they're all going down the same side streets. And like so
hmm
specifically on my way home in Oakland, I could either turn down like the smaller street, like through the neighborhood, or I can stay on the main street. And there's
yeah,
always no traffic on the main street. And the reason for that is like there's so many Ubers and so many like Lyft cars that are driving, and they all go down exactly what the navigation says. And
okay, yeah,
the left hand turning lane for that side street is not long enough to like have a bunch of cars lined up to do that. Uh, but I consistently just skip that left, and I take the next left, and then I'm home.
okay,
But what I'm getting at is like we're in similar times where everyone kind of, if you take everything for face value, if I'm just going to use Claude 3.7 to answer a question or 4.1, we might
yeah,
all be writing code the same way. And like the benefit of what we have here is I can now train my assistant in a way that matters to my team and the folks that
yeah,
interact with my project. And we're not taking everything for face value of like, well, the agent told me to use, React Router V5 because that's what came up. And
yeah,
who cares if it aged? Like, this is what I'm going to like copy and paste into here, or I'm going to have it generate. So now you can like set expectations where no, this is how we do business here. This is how we write code.
yeah,
But speaking of which, I did use 4.1, which is obviously not open source, but for the sake of like time and brevity. And I did want to point out like if you've used agentic mode in Cursor or Copilot, like very similar experience, it's going to do some
yeah,
work. And what's beautiful about this is like the word continue shows up because it actually stops when you need to go make some changes to your file, and you can either hit Command Enter or hit Continue, and it'll
okay,
go ahead and do that work. So it's leveraging the supply model to basically apply these changes, which we can see here. And hopefully it's fixed that one. I think, was it a type error? I forgot what the actual error was.
yeah. I think it
Oh, it
was.
wasn't
Oh,
used, an unused
okay,
variable. So I had some sort of cherry pick things. Actually, it looks like it didn't change it because I'm looking at it right here, but I could also delete that as well. Um,
yeah.
Fix the issue by removing the unused structuring. Oh, that's interesting. Well, it didn't fix it, but
Well, it's a live demo. It's
yeah,
fine.
live demos for the win. But
Yeah,
ideally, you can get to see how continue itself works.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, honestly, I'm pretty excited about this product and kind of excited about the sort of how accessible it becomes for me to like go trade in on certain things. My goal, hopefully in the future, is to like start embedding this into my open source workflow and start
okay,
sharing my assistants pre-packaged, ready to go for people to contribute some of the projects I'm working on. Because like
hmm
you had to maintain open source,
yeah,
and that was like yeah, it was a lift to like take random contributions to the project and like justify whether this is worth maintaining in the long term, or do we like push back and tell them to write test or whatever it is. The
yeah,
benefit of having a rule, like I have a rule in my rules for this assistant that says we prefer to write test of a test, and when options are ready, like write a test to like, confirm things are working. And I love it when I'm in agent mode and it's like, hey, based on your rules, you use for tests. Would you like me to write
yeah,
a rule? And I could be like, oh, cool, yes. Like I decided not to write a rule, write a test.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm enjoying messing around with this. Hopefully, I'll be enjoying self-hosting some more models and stuff like that. But yeah, that's essentially continuing in a nutshell. I forgot how much time we have, so I feel like I'm
Oh
winding
yeah.
down, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I always book these for the same amount of time, but like doesn't mean like we have to speak for like an hour and a half at all. But no, this looks really compelling as a product. I'm definitely gonna, well, I'll go give it a star, even though I said stars don't are vanity metrics. But and I'm gonna pull down your Jarvis there and give the basically I'm just gonna sign up and check the whole thing out, because like I don't know, it's interesting times, like you said, there's so many tools out there now, and it's like, and even in some cases, like I use different tools for different things, but definitely gonna put this in my tool belt and take it for a test run for sure. Uh,
Cool. Yeah.
yeah.
And I wonder if I could open up a quick check. Yeah, it looks like we like on the schedule we have we've got 15 minutes, but I'll show you some stuff I was doing to kind of like expand my experience with continue. So I built this project in Ruby, and
Okay.
I've been kind of trying to be a polyglot as of recent. So um, I've been doing some tests and between like Copilot and Continue, and I created like this like if you know like Copilot instructions.
Hmm.
I don't have my actual Continue rules in the specifically in this project, um, but they mirror the Ruby assistant mirrors what's in here. But I mentioned this because let me open a new chat, and then I'll switch to my Ruby assistant. Oh,
Cool.
looks like oh, because I opened up a new VS Code. I gotta like re-log in to this. There we go. Oh, let me refresh this. That is like the slowest. All right, let's see. Oh, interesting. I am logged in, right?
Yeah, looks like it. I like robot.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes. I've DDoSed my my
Your own
Gmail.
machine. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Let me hit the login in the browser real quick.
Cool. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I
No
missed the
worries.
last time. There we go. I just got a solid refresh,
Okay.
and I'll
So
go
we're
to my
back.
Ruby assistant. So I spent some time. Actually, you could probably look at my old chats. Actually, these sessions are. I've done so much. It actually has sessions for all projects. And
Oh,
take.
okay.
Oh well, this is. There we go. Yeah, so you can look at my previous chat, which is oh, I guess I was fixing something. But in my rules, I specifically leverage continue. I have a rule to basically say we do TDD, which you did some Ruby on Rails at Dev 2. Like, you
Yeah.
familiar with
Yeah.
the concept of a TDD, test driven development?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So I wanted to test, and I'll hopefully have a blog post on this as well about using TDD and with agentic workflows. But I specifically said we do not create any features unless we write a test first, and we have to run the
Okay.
test before we start generating code. So the beauty of this is like, in the concept of Ruby, like Ruby is a very strict, like there's like the Ruby way, which is
Hmm.
a very perfect way to create rules inside of your assistant. So what I'm getting at is like I created the Ruby way rules, and then I created essentially some strict prompts to say we TDD for every feature, and it's like magic to basically see changes, which it'll take me a second to like justify um, some refactoring, but I might actually let me pick like a long file. Yeah, actually, this is a good one. Um, like we don't have to like watch the entire thing work, but I'll create a new chat and I'll
Okay.
just basically say like, cool, I've got my Ruby assistant. I've got all my rules. I could also, if you're familiar with like the different model types and stuff like that, you can sort of manipulate how your model, or sorry, how your assistant interacts with models and like the docs and rules like directly here. But what I'm getting at is I will add the context of open files, which I'll go maybe it's actually what's cool about this is continue ships pretty quickly. Oh, let me shift to agent mode, and I'll
Okay.
just add the
There's
code
files.
base.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see files? Was it there?
It was at the top. I think it was a plus. Oh no,
Oh, there
that's
we
maybe
go.
that's okay.
Yeah. Let me go to. I realize I'm looking at a test file. Let me go to the lib and grab data fetcher. Uh, I am basically going to. I'll just like drop a. Well, first let me grab the file since I'm here. Do do do. And oh, that I could search there, but not the case. Data fetcher. Oh, there it is. So I had that
Okay.
file, and I'll just ask refactor this file into a Actually, I'll just say it talking English. Take an opportunity to refactor some logic into a new file, which is, I don't know, this feels like more of a spray and pray, or it feels very much like a vibe coding, because I'm not providing a lot of context, but I feel like when
Yeah.
I've got eyes watching me, I don't usually type good prompts.
It's all good. It's
But
all good.
we'll see what it does with this. But you'll probably, I want to see is like some context of like writing test popped in here, because I sort of force this agent to write test, and to
Okay.
be like, all methods have to be no longer than like 10 lines or 10 lines long. So you can kind of see like the readability of my code is like, actually it's like 30 lines. But the readability of my code, my Ruby code, is very Ruby-esque, because I force the
Yeah.
assistant to only generate code that's in that vein. So we'll see what the response is, which is, yeah, so it's going to create a new file for just GitHub data processing, which is good. We'll go ahead and hit continue so it can do that. We'll see that the file will get generated here. So that's this. And then now it's going to refactor that data fetcher class. So the previous file is going to refactor some code to remove some code here. And I'm sort of like spray and pray vibe coding. I'll just click continue without double checking the work. I won't
Yeah.
commit this, but essentially kind of want to show how you can leverage this. And I think what's really valuable about this is, like, we had a coworker who was based in Nigeria who had like, obviously, like internet issues and like intermittent when it came to like power and stuff like that. For someone who wants to get their job done and wants to like be uninterrupted based on stability of the internet, like this is a wonderful thing to do. I like to go to coffee
Hmm.
shops, and I don't often, like, I'll use my phone for Wi-Fi, but I don't often
Yeah.
connect to the Wi-Fi at coffee shops and airports. Like, this is another way for me to like make sure I'm air gapped and not connecting to public Wi-Fi and needing to use my VPN, that I can
Yeah.
have in isolation. Let me just get some work done.
I know.
And
Totally.
there's a world where like the internet goes out, you can't use Stack Overflow. Like, you're pretty much cooked on being an engineer. Um, that world is no longer it's no longer true, because now I can actually have my local models and stuff like that to run this.
Oh yeah.
So
Totally.
yeah, we'll just continue to do refactoring, which we'll see
Oh,
a bunch of deletions, which is how refactoring works, and we'll accept all those changes, and we'll continue down this path.
yeah. There's Mark over on LinkedIn saying this. They really like the practice demonstration. Very valuable, they said. I don't know if that's somebody you know. They work at Ankara. Is that
Yeah, Mark, we met at KubeCon as well. So yeah, thanks for
okay?
coming through.
Yeah. No, I met side note, but met a ton of people at KubeCon. It was really good. It was a interesting experience for me because like I'm literally brand new to that whole ecosystem. So it was just great meeting all kinds of people, and it was just it was pretty amazing. The last day, like I don't know if you know Abdel over at Google, one of the DevRel there. He does the Kubernetes
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah,
Okay.
I met him at All Things Open, and we connected. And then I saw him the last day of KubeCon. I was just like, hey, like I literally just went over there to say like, how's it going? And he's like, oh, how's your KubeCon? I was like, oh, it's my first one. And he's like, what? And so like I basically ended up on the Kubernetes podcast. It's like
Oh,
I'm
perfect.
I'm I'm like the new person. I have barely any knowledge of Kubernetes, and I'm on, on the Kubernetes podcast. So anyways, it was awesome. But
Yeah, perfect. I was on a couple podcasts, actually. I think Bart caught me actually right next to your booth, and we did a
okay.
little conversation. But second KubeCon I've been to, well, I technically went to the one during the pandemic, which was remote.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
so technically third, but second time in person.
Yeah.
But I did want to point out that it did ensure that our test was covered,
Okay.
and that cases are valid and stuff like that. So I do
Yeah.
like it when it does run the test for you. So like, if this is like a longer refactor, it does get to the point, or you could add the prompt of like, make sure you run the test in between
Mhm.
each change. But again, like, this is an opportunity to kind of to show broader strokes of what Continue can do for you, and
Yeah.
kind of what I've been working on when it comes to building stuff with Continue.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. Like I said, I'm definitely gonna sign up and pull it down. The the thing that I think one thing this is like in general, but I think one thing that's interesting about all this AI tooling now happening is because like I don't know about your experience with TDD, but like when I used to do a lot of .NET, it was always like, okay, you've got to do test-driven development, so you got to write the tests before things get implemented.
Yeah.
Didn't always happen, to be honest, because like deadlines, but um, I think now that we're there with the AI tooling, we can just describe what we want. Like I need a, like your data fetcher. I need a data fetcher to do this. And it can essentially scaffold the test for you before it's even implemented the thing. Whereas, because like, if I'm being honest, these days I haven't done much test-driven development. I still write tests, but it'll be more like either during or after the fact. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just like the nature of
No
a lot of
judgment.
yeah, it's just the
We listen
nature
and we
of
don't
some of
judge.
yeah, exactly. But I think definitely tests in the AI landscape, it's kind of like a superpower. It's like a lot of people don't like to write tests, and like something like continue or like you could have it literally probably bring you to 100% code coverage.
Well, this project I showed you is at 26%. And the
Okay.
reason I know that is because I've been working with I'm like relearning Ruby and Go by like writing tests and like building structure. I'm building Go packages just for fun, like nothing to like go ship and do anything with. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I feel like this might. I'm curious your opinion because like this might be bad for junior engineers because you're gonna go through the world of vibe coding and then you get a real
Yeah.
job and then you're like, oh wait, like why can't it just like generate a bunch of code and like you review it?
Yeah.
But as someone like ourselves, like you spent like you got like probably 10 years on me for full-time engineering. I know the best practices. Like I've done the
Yeah.
TDD, I've done like the Ruby method, I've done like clean, I've done all the React training courses, which like the remix guys. Like I know the best practices and I know how to implement them. But
Yeah.
every now and then I'm just like, if it's just me and no agent, like no coding assistant, I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, does it work? Cool, ship it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I feel protected because like as soon as I started shipping some open source stuff, some side projects, I started getting issues open from some of our open source friends
Yeah.
asking to contribute to stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me write a test suite and like let me create some rules to like kind of like add some basically I need to add a linter to add some other stuff because I don't want to start reviewing weird stuff. But I know you
Hmm.
get a lot of weird stuff when folks are coming from different backgrounds and contributions in open source. And
Oh yeah.
like no one
Totally.
has the time to like spin up all the stuff when you're just spinning up side projects. But the one thing I've been doing a lot of, which I'll show one more thing because I think
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is
Go for it.
definitely worth showing. This concept, which again I've half written a blog post on this, um,
Okay.
but
Yeah, let me add your screen back. Cool.
yeah. So I have this concept of like README driven development. So like I'll vibe code something and be like, cool, it works. Like I can see it working. Generate me a README that includes like project structure and like explanations of the code. So like I don't push a project to GitHub without generating a README.
Okay.
Like the README might be out of sync and stuff like that, but like when you think about how important documentation is, and that's like that's the difference between someone contributing and not contributing.
Yeah.
Which I point out like things that I've learned since then is like I don't use Yarn, so I created a rule like don't use Yarn. Like we're
Yeah.
npm only here. Like I get there's other things, but like this is the tool chain that I use and want to be consistent with. And when you have like outside contributors, you can get like a wild different experiences. And I know me as a junior engineer, as a first time job in San Francisco, I'd be making like wild requests to be like, I saw a thing on a weekend, like we should be using this, and I
Yeah.
had no
Yeah.
justification. Like all that stuff can be justified through code review. Um, but what I want to do is like put up the guardrails of like this is how we do things.
Hmm.
So like here's my other generated README for my pull to press project. And it's again a vibe coded weekend project that essentially just explains. Uh, Actually, something that's interesting is I've this project. I'm using OpenAI, but locally I'm using Olama. And the reason
Okay.
for that is like I was spending a lot of credits, a lot of tokens while testing it, and I wanted to be able to switch over and test different models locally.
Okay.
So this is like an explanation I generated on how the API works and how OpenAI is integrated and how Olama only works for local development and testing. So I run full tests using Olama. They're
Okay.
all generated and I vibe coded. But it's just like a way for me to like get the idea out there, go sit it on like a stage or whatever. Like I'll talk to this in the future.
Yeah.
I'll actually show the product as well. But the idea is like this take a PR, which I should just grab a PR and I'll show you how it works. Here is a PR of me fixing the routing
Okay.
for the project.
Oh,
And
I
as long
like
as
this already.
and this is like our highlights feature. Like this is basically a reshelling of that highlights feature where we were generating the highlight.
Yeah.
Which I also realized this is going to take a second
Oh, that's
because
cool.
it's not cached. But I could also go to like an older one too as well.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. No, this is super handy, and I, I've been doing something. I because like obviously part of my job is writing some blog posts, some change logs and stuff. Uh, but what I've been doing is we have like transcriptions of like I'll have a conversation with like I'm in all the engineering things, so like a new feature is coming out, and I'll talk through and like I'll try to explain it myself and just get clarification on things, and I'll grab that, I'll grab PRs, and I kind of mash all that into like make me an initial draft of a blog post at least,
Yeah.
because like I don't know, I guess people have different opinions about AI generating stuff like for like writing, but like to me I think that's fine because it's like actual content from your team or yourself, and it's just giving you like a first kind of,
Yeah, it's like your
attempt
first
at it.
pass. And I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of because like there's gonna be and this is gonna have all these sort of what's the one keyword that people delve. It's gonna have like, oh, let's
Oh yeah,
delve
yeah.
into these features.
Yeah, and I
Um
think it's M dash now that they put
yeah,
everywhere.
look for the in dashes here. Look very closely. But what I'm doing right now is I'm very similar to Star Search. So you remember that, but like there's a blog post on
Yeah.
Star Search and a video out there if anybody wants to catch up. But take the pull request description, take the comments, take the code changes, and
Yeah.
then do a rag search. I'm doing embeddings, and then I basically generate a blog post based on the change. So ideally, this is like I'm not going to ship this to production, like this blog post in face value. But what I love
Yeah.
about this is like I can catch up pretty quickly on what the changes are, like what's the conversation, the story.
Yeah.
And what I've been doing is I've actually been shipping my own blog post to my new site, briandouglas.me, which I also vibe coded. And the idea is this essentially, I want to get to the point where I can start generating blog posts and getting more in my back in
Yeah.
my writing days.
Yeah. Side note, you have a really good newsletter that I'm subscribed to. I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but
Oh yeah, plug. Let's do
because
it.
yeah,
bdougie.
shamelessly plug.
Well, I'll mention b.dougie.dev is all my links if anybody's interested and catching up. But my newsletter is down here. Probably just an orange. I've got a thing with orange. This developing story is what it's
Oh
called
yeah,
now.
that's it. That's it. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I should probably throw a newsletter together this weekend about deploying AI coding assistance. I've got a bunch of context on it. I just haven't got to sit down and write.
Oh yeah, all good. But to your point, you're asking before about like vibe coding and junior folks or people just starting off, and I think that's where the difference is. Like I think that the fact that AI is here to stay now, it's like I think employers will probably expect you to ship faster as well. So like as an experienced person like yourself or myself, like we can be critical of it, even if like I don't think vibe coding is a bad thing. Yeah. I don't know if she was your old coworker or not, but she's at GitHub now. Ashley Willis.
Oh
She
yeah,
she put a tweet out or a post or a toot or whatever, just asking about thoughts on vibe coding. And I think it's totally fine if you're just trying to knock out ideas like you were saying before, no problem. But if you're doing stuff for work like production grade, I think it's still okay to vibe code. You just have to be critical of it. That's the main
yeah,
difference. And I think that's where I'm not saying all, but I think people starting off, that's maybe where they fall short, where they'll be like, oh, it made the component or it made the page for me or it wrote that Go package for me and it works, so ship it. I think
yeah.
that's the
And this is
difference.
why tools that we kind of take for granted, like code review, like
Yeah.
I was a stickler, and like because I was shipping code day to day at open source eventually, like I tried not to push back too much, but every now and then I would DM people and be like, "Hey, your PR description's awful. Like, could you like
Yeah,
follow
yeah,
like a structure?" And what's interesting about that is like if you have a good PR like structure, like we had a template, it
yeah,
actually it fuels better growth for everyone around you. So like
totally.
I used to I manage people and people would be like, "Oh man, no one's reviewing my code." Be like, "Well, you put like I fixed a thing, but you have
Yeah,
no
or
issue
did
links, you've
it.
got no context, you've got like what was the story, like what did you fail at, like what did you succeed at, and all that's like
Yeah.
valuable insight. And what I love about like using Claude as like a model is Claude will actually spit out like reasoning at the end of your agent experience and be like, hey, I
Yeah.
changed this, I did that. This is what I'm like. This is the other stuff I'm doing, and it gives you like that output right there could be your
Mhm.
PR description. And I think what's
Totally.
really important about like when you're vibe coding is like keep it small, constrained, like do one feature, like do one
Yeah.
thing, and then put it up for code review, even if you're the only one reviewing, or if Copilot's the only one reviewing. So I feel like there's now an opening where we have like Code Rabbits in one of them. There's a couple other tools like with this code
Yeah.
review, AI assistants. Like I think there's a bit of an opening for people to now solve more of the problem. A
Mhm.
company I just
Totally.
met recently, Merge, MRGE.io, currently
Okay.
at YC, but like they're rethinking the experience of code review and like how knowledge transfer and sharing is happening. So like I
Okay.
feel like the world's expanding. Documentation is going to be completely different.
Oh,
Where
yeah,
we
totally.
back in the day we had like all these automated tools to keep your docs up to date, and like we'd have like entire comment blocks to like make sure our APIs were consistent. Then we all moved to TypeScript, which we had
Yeah.
consistency there. But now, like I haven't written a type in a while. Like I'm just like, dude, like just don't do any like create these types for me. And like unblock me on some like meaningful work, but stuff that I could do with my eyes closed, I just don't want to do anymore.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks for the nice comment, Benjamin. Yeah, he's curious, or they're curious to check out Continue and mess around stuff, and check out your newsletter. So that's cool. Um, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah.
Is great hanging. I'm excited to check out the stuff that Continue's been doing. I'm always up for adding stuff to my tool belt. So I'll drop a link to that again for folks if they're interested. It's just continue.dev, but I'll just put it on the jumbotron for a sec here. And yeah, thanks for taking the time, B Dougie. I know you're always got a lot on the go, so I appreciate you taking the time, and it's always great hanging. And for everybody else in the chat there, thanks so much for hanging with us. And we're gonna be back, I think, mid in a couple weeks. We're gonna be hanging with Andrew Brown from Exam Pro, and he's also pretty well known in the cloud space and free code camp. We're actually going to be using generative AI to build a game. So I'm curious to see how that pans out. But anyways, check that out. You can check the schedule, and don't forget to give a follow to Premium on all the channels. And yeah, B Doug, if you don't mind just staying on for a sec, and everybody
Yeah.
else, we'll see you in the next one.
Stay saucy.